What qualifications do you need to homeschool your child? I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I teach all over the world about parenting, good communication, how to build strong family bonds, child development, and education through the lens of the principle self-government. And I'm also a homeschool mom. In this video, we're going to be talking about homeschool and you. So you're interested in homeschooling, you're asking questions about qualifications. What qualifications does a homeschool parent need? Well, that depends. We're going to talk about the principles of what you really need to homeschool your children in this video, and we're going to also talk about things that might be in place in the states or countries where you live. Every state and country is slightly different in relation to homeschool, and so that can vary, but there are certain principles that never vary. Let's talk about some of those principles first. But first, I'd like to share with you a story about me. I never thought I'd be a homeschooler. Never in a million years. My dad was a public school teacher. He was also a university professor, and I was very successful at school. I got good grades, I did all of the extracurricular things, I had a lot of friends. Life was good at school. Why wouldn't I want my children to have the same thing? Well, there was a time when my children started learning to read really early, like age 3. And this was because I couldn't wait to teach them, and they really truly had an interest and an aptitude to be able to do it. So once you teach your 3-year-old to read, then you have to ask yourself the question, what's the point of going to school? Also, we were doing therapeutic treatment care for troubled teens at the time, and those teens were going to school, and I saw what was happening at the school, and I wasn't impressed with the environment or the way that problems were handled there. I started thinking more and more that homeschool was going to be right for my family. Now, I've got to tell you something. I don't have like a degree in homeschool. I don't even think that exists. In fact, a person has to just learn how people learn all on their own when they decide to homeschool their children. And I engaged in that type of a study. When I speak at homeschool conferences now, I tell people one of the best things that you can learn as a homeschooler is how people learn. Where do you study how people learn? Well, one of my best resources that I could share with you is a book by Oliver Van de Mille called A Thomas Jefferson Education. I also studied the writings of Charlotte Mason, John Holt, Fenelon, Erickson, so many other educators and people who chimed in on education. But start with A Thomas Jefferson Education, and you will get information about education that you've never thought of before. Once I learned the things in that book, I could never go back. I realized my family culture needed to be different than what was going on socially, and that my children needed to have a world-class education, not just an assembly line education. So we embarked on the world of leadership education. You can find more information about how I homeschool on my homeschool website, which is heartofhomeschool.net. So I'm most known for my parenting stuff, which is all available on teachingselfgovernment.com, but heartofhomeschool.net I created when people started homeschooling around the time of COVID and needed some support and help. So there are many principles of homeschool that are shared there on that website, but some of them include these simple truths. Number 1, the child was born to you, not to the school, not to the society or the community. You. God already saw that you were the best person to raise and teach that child. Whether you have a college degree or you don't have a college degree, whether you've studied education or you don't. You need to know that you're enough just because you are the parent. You are the primary stakeholder in that child's life. You care about their outcome more personally than anybody else who might know or interact with your child. Obviously, you're going to want to make sure that you've learned how to read and write and do arithmetic yourself. But one of the biggest things that I learned while studying a Thomas Jefferson education was I just needed to be one step ahead of my children. I needed to have looked over a book before they read it, or maybe I've read it before they've read it. Or if I want them to be really good at note-taking, then maybe what I need to do is start working on my note-taking skills. And as I focused on that as my qualification, everything changed for me. In fact, Oliver DeMille shared in his book, The Phases of Learning, that there are multiple different keys of education that make a really great leadership education. One of those keys is you, not them. That means that you focus on your own education more than you focus on trying to dump education in somebody else's head. Because here's the deal. You can't ever get an education for anybody else. You can't make them learn or make them get an education. They have to choose it. The only thing the parent can do is create the right environment. So if you learn what type of an environment to make and you work on your own education, then you will be more qualified to lead them through their education in the same environment. There are different environments of learning, such as lecture, discussion, testing, and so forth. It's important to understand those environments of learning, and those are also talked about in a Thomas Jefferson education. Honestly, the books by Oliver DeMille about education are probably the best synopsis to great educational environment that you can find anywhere. I mean, obviously you can read all of the books of Charlotte Mason. That'll take you a lot more time, but they will add some other important insights as well. A lot of people focus on curriculum when they're starting to think about homeschooling. Curriculum is not your most important decision that you make. What type of a home culture that you want is the most important decision you make. What do I want our home life to feel like and be like? How many days of the week and year do we want to do homeschool? Like in our family, we decided it was all year round because my children loved the inspiration that came from learning. They didn't ever want it to end, and I also didn't ever want them to have to review things. This ended up making it that my children started university at young ages, but they didn't complain about that. In fact, they were ready for the next challenge as it was presented to them. Now let's talk about where you might be living. Some places in the world have different rules related to homeschooling. Some people have to fill out forms and affidavits to declare that they are going to be homeschooling. Some people have to test their children who are homeschooled. Some people, if they want to get funding from the government, like money back from the government because they're homeschooling, will have to test or turn in portfolios, those types of things. Some states have said, nope, we're not doing any testing, we're not doing any portfolios, we're trusting the parents entirely. This is very exciting. I know that where I live, that's what they're saying. Unless somebody wants to get funding from the government, because technically we're all paying taxes, and this would give some of that education tax money back to those parents who are paying for all of their education out of their own pocket. Those parents, if they want that money back, do have to turn in a portfolio, which basically is like a bullet point list of the things that they're using the money for. It's not incredibly intrusive, at least where I live. But I do know some people who have to engage in testing. There are some states who want their homeschool educators to do some training as a teacher, but I would say that's very rare. Now, in other countries around the world, homeschool is new. There are some countries where homeschool is outlawed. If you're thinking of homeschooling and you live in one of those countries, you might have to move, because otherwise you'll be doing it behind the scenes and you could end up getting into some legal trouble. I absolutely understand why anybody would want to homeschool in this day and age. The educational world right now is just so incredibly confusing, and it's really not conclusive on what is best for children. People are sending out all kinds of information to the schools for children, and it oftentimes conflicts with the morals, values, and family cultures of the families that the children are coming from. So definitely create that cultural environment for you and your family. And even if you don't end up deciding to homeschool, don't forget, every single parent is actually a homeschool parent. The way that you teach and train your children formats them for life. Who you teach them to trust and learn from formats them for life. And you are the number one person that they should feel is teaching them in their lives, no matter where they go to school. I have a lot of other videos on this channel about homeschool, but there's one that I think might benefit you, no matter whether you're homeschooling or not, in order to help your days go smoother as a parent. This video is called The Expectation Trap versus the Cycle for Success. Click on the link to that video now. I'll see you there.